Well, good afternoon. It is a sunny Dorney, the first sunny Dorney of the year, as we are at National Schools Regatta, one of the first, I would say, big regatta of the British racing calendar, and what a big event it is. We're around the 750 metre mark. Finishing line is down that way, and you can see all the flags of all the various schools camped out, and the same back that way as well. So really, from about 1,000 metres to the finish line, it's just tribalism of all the different clubs who have come to support their athletes and their children and their parents and grandparents and whomever else. So welcome not just to Dorney and National Schools Regatta, but to the second instalment of this, the Rowing Notebook. This is a very informal, bloggy, vloggy type thing. The idea is to give you, dear viewer, a chance with me, David McNeil, rowing coach, the chance to revisit the day's racing so far and look forward to what comes next. Racing is in fact still going on. You can see a race coming down now as the minor finals from the Junior 16 events are carrying on. However, the Rowing Notebook can't focus on absolutely every race, every crew, every club. So for this, I'm going to focus on the championship events that we've had this morning and some very good racing, some very good time trialing, some really interesting repechages, and heating up for what will be some enjoyable AB semis tomorrow. But let's start off with a general review of what's going on. Well, it's pretty nice, right? It's in the mid-20s, which for the UK is pretty glorious. It's warm, the water's flat, and as you can see from the flags behind me, it's a fairly gentle cross-tail, and it's been that throughout the course of the day. So everything is pretty comparable when it comes to times. In order to win your time trials, you're sort of looking at really having to get something in the mid 96 percentages to low 97 percentages. And if you want to get in that mythical, that magical top 8, which sees you straight into an AB semi-final and not having to go through a repechage, well, be prepared to churn out around about 91.5%, and that will kind of see you through. Notably, there's a couple of pretty fast events. Both male events, the championship quads, which you'll need to be hitting 94% to get into that much sought after top 8, and 96% in championship men's 8s. So we know that, you know, sweep events in the UK, very strong at, but really strong to see 96% as the time required to get you into that top 8. Fastest championship event was boys coxed fours. Coxed fours, bit of a funny GMT because it's not an Olympic event, and even though these are junior GMTs, you tend to see a slightly suppressed one. But well done to Windsor Boys School for getting 99.2% of GMT in that event. And of the Olympic events, it was St Paul's in championship events at 99.1%. So not bad for a club crew to be getting that in late May. So remarkable stuff just to be getting into semi-finals there. Right, so let's move on to some of the specific events, and we'll start off with the small boats. And congratulations to Mr. Tom Pekulis for a casual 97.8% in his time trial for championship single sculls. Pekulis, returner this year. Last year was in the double gold winning coupe quad. However, that was his last year as a GB eligible junior. So he has now stepped up into the under 23 realm and is in fact trialling for the under 23 team. And, not disgracing himself. So well done, Thomas, for doing that. And he is an absolute powerhouse on the erg as well. I believe he's broken that 6-minute barrier on the erg. And obviously that's translating into some quite nice boat speed for him as well. Other than notable performers, Masters from Grange, he's got good pace. However, he was about 6 seconds back on Paculis. So I think the AB semis and other events are going to be interesting to see how they shake out. But it does seem like Paculis is the early form guy. And based on his performance at Docklands Regatta last week, it is hard to look past him for the win. But other performers to keep your eyes on, Dan Page from Hartpury. Interesting programme at Hartpury where they have a number of very good scullers. They have amongst their mitts Dan Page. He's not a shonky athlete, clearly, just finishing third in the time trial for the junior singles. And then the likes of Max Fullman, World Championship double sculls last year, finishing in the B final there, and Alex Judd. But they're not in the quads. They've decided to break their quads for whatever reason. They weren't hitting the percentage times, and they've hit the small boats instead. So Page doing well in the single, and then tomorrow Fullman and Judd, who are an interesting combination, coming down the track in a double. And I, for one, am going to be lakeside for that time trial and to see what happens thereafter. Another sculler of note is Ezra Ferguson from George Watson's College. He had a really great under-16 year, qualifying as the the J16 match sculler, which he won. Last year, first year under 18s, didn't have a great year. However, he's now transitioning up and doing a stonking job and finished 4th ranked in the time trial. So I think we're going to see a really interesting AB semi-final playing out between those guys. If I'm honest, looking at the times between the time trial and the reps, can't see many others challenging from the reps to break into that top 8. It's possible that Rayner from Marlow, who showed himself to have a bit of a turn of speed in the reps, could put his nose up there. But the AB semis are always an interesting kettle of fish, right? For many, they just got to go out there and race it like it is their final. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know who are going to be the racers who just get out there and upset the form book that's started. So junior boys singles tomorrow, championship singles tomorrow, going to be one to watch. Is Tom Paculis going to set the water alight in the way that many expect him to? Or are other people going to go and try and give him a run for his money? Let's move on to the championship women's singles. Right, so interesting event, this one. We've got some great female athletes across the country. However, most of the stronger female athletes seem to be in the programs which are targeting the quad events. So for that reason, we saw a slightly suppressed GMT for the championship women's singles compared to others. 94.46, but a very close field. So whilst it might not be the fastest of events in the women's sculling disciplines, women's quads we'll come on to in a minute, it is one of the closer ones. So the standard of racing tomorrow should be brilliant. So get lakeside to watch that. A name of note, I'll just chuck out there, is Amy Milner of Bradford Rowing Club. So Amy is an absolute, she loves this sport. I had the privilege of working with her as coach to athlete for the last couple of years. And she's an individual who just chipping away at her performances and absolutely loves the sport. She finished, let me just check my notes, 5th in the time trial, and really great to see her now in that upper echelon, so that the performances that she's seeing are starting to really mirror the effort, the enthusiasm, the dedication and commitment that she has shown. Amy, well done, good to see you up there. Also good to see, and you will detect in my accent a bit of Scottishness, that there are 3 female scullers in the top 8. So well done, Ms. Warnock of Glasgow, Ms Clements of George Watson's and Ms McKendrick of St Andrews. And if Ms Warnick's racing tomorrow is anything like her mummy and daddy used to race, who I had the privilege to race alongside when I was a younger man, then she's going to get the bit between her teeth tomorrow and give us all something very interesting to watch. Right, let's move on now to the Women's Championship quads. What can be said about Marlow? Well, first of all, let's say well done Pete Chambers, coach at Marlow Rowing Club, because over the last few years he has built a really great programme, and it's not just well done to Pete, it's well done to all the athletes and all the parents who have also supported him along the way. There's that saying, it takes a village to make a champion. Well, I think the saying is pretty true of Marlow, right? That's a club which literally has had to reinvent itself from the ashes when it burnt down about 10 years ago now. And has it managed to do that? You betcha it has. So in today, the women's quad from Marlow, continuing the early season form that we've seen from the Wallingford Regatta, the Junior Sculling Regatta, the Schools Head of the River, and laying down the winning pace in the time trial of 96.9%. Perhaps not unexpected, when you consider the form book, but also that it's got two world champions on board from the women's 8 in Trakai from last year. They are no longer under 18 eligible for the international regatta scene, but they can continue to do junior rowing here in the UK. So good to see them sticking with the sport and hopefully going to have a stonking good year as well. Then you got about 1.2% back to Tideways Scullers, and then a bit of a blob with Scullers, Wycliffe, Maidenhead, and potentially George Heriot's coming into the mix. So a really interesting field shaping up in the women's quads. I suspect that after the AB semi-finals tomorrow, we're not going to see many from the Repechages featuring and coming through into the AB, challenging for the A final. I think that the form book suggests that the majority of the top 8 scullers, top 8 crews from the time trial will remain intact. But you never know, because when you get side by side, people can put the shakers up there, and maybe one of the faster crews from the reps could go out hard and fast, frighten some other crews, unsettle the result. That's why this side-by-side stuff is always so interesting. But I would hazard a guess, and there you go, I'm going to put my first prediction on the board and say that Marlow will win Women's Championship quads tomorrow. Let me know what you think. In the men's event, so similar to the women's, who were 96.9, the championship men's quads winning time trial time was 96.7%, and that went to one Windsor Boys School, the name you can almost always rely at being at the top, if not very near the top, of a crew sculling event here in the UK. Windsor Boys are in an interesting position, having not had it all their own way at the Junior Sculling Regatta 2 weeks ago, when Borlase overtook them to win by 0.01 of a second there. But they've clearly gone out here and looked to reassert themselves. They were 2 seconds faster than Leander, who were second. And I have to say that following their performance at the Junior Sculling Regatta, I was very much expecting that Leander crew to come back in some force. It looked like they were quite cautious at the Junior Sculling Regatta and Wallingford, and I was surprised, because they're clearly very physical, and that confidence and that aggression, which you often associate with those Leander crews, wasn't quite there. But we clearly saw it today as they went down the track and had a stormer of a time trial. Then we've got the interesting grouping of Scullers, Borleys, Marlow and Clare's Court. So they are currently all separated by just less than 6 seconds. So going to be a very interesting AB semi-final. Again, because I suspect that it will be very hard for the crews who were outside of the top 8, based on what we saw in the repechages today, to challenge for the places in the A final. I suspect if there's anybody that can do it, it might be Hartpury, it might be City of Cambridge, who won their repechages. But what we do know is that Windsor Boys School are looking very strong, as are Leander. What has been the differentiating factor, I hear you ask? Well, the big difference between those top end crews, the Windsor Boys, the Leanders, the Clare's Courts, the Marlows, the Borleys, the Scullers, Tideway Scullers, I believe is how they engage the boat at the front end. It's the difference between, do you take 4 single scullers, stick them in a quad and say, make that work, boys? Or do you recognise actually that a quad is a very different boat to a single? It moves much faster. It's much lighter at the front end than a single will be. And I think that's really borne out in the style that all of these crews row. As we see now, a really great race emerging. That is probably championship coxed 4s. So well done for those of you in that race. This is just approaching halfway and it's pretty much overlap on the whole field. That's the standard of racing that we love at National Schools Regatta. So moving back away from the championship boys quads for tomorrow, I'm going to make my next prediction, and I'm going to say that Windsor Boys School will win over Leander, and I think Borleys will take the bronze medal. There you go. There's my podium for championship quads tomorrow. And that's based on the technical excellence that we see out of Windsor Boys time and time again, the way that that club matches up physicality with technical prowess and just the movement pattern that makes a quad move well, the physicality and tidiness in blade work that we see from Leander time after time, and hopefully that same level of aggression and confidence that we'll see, that we haven't seen, that I think we will see tomorrow. And then Borleys, I think, will be so buoyed by the result that they had a couple of weeks back, is they are going to go out there with all the aggression and all the intent to make this an absolutely stonker for them. So that's going to be a great final tomorrow, but we've got some good A and B semi-finals before that as well to look forward to. Let's look at Championship Women's 8s. Right, a smaller entry here than we see in many of the other events. Which is, a bit sad to see. It would be lovely to see more women's sweep events. We have seen a really strong event in the women's coxed and coxless championship events. And maybe that's reflective of the fact that it is just hard to put an 8 out to rival the powerhouses that are Headington and Shiplake and St Edwards. So the time trial, all crews were guaranteed to go through to the AB semi. So the time trial was essentially a bit of a freebie. And I think that was borne out because we didn't see anybody really like the touch paper and keeping that powder dry. So 96.29%. And we saw roughly the same sort of threshold for times in the A and B semis. And it's hard to look past Shiplake, Headington and Teddy's. They're separated by less than 2.5 seconds in the time trial, with a gap back to the rest. I suspect the podium is set. What order the podium is set in, I don't know. And I also suspect that it will then be a very tightly matched thing for the minor placings of the A final, with the likes of St Paul's, Henley and Enniskillen, who appear to be very tightly matched as well. So I think that's going to be an absolutely brilliant final to get yourself lakeside tomorrow for, or tune into the the live stream. Who's going to take what colour medal between Shiplake, Headington and Teddy's, and then who's going to really try to break the others in the St Paul's, Henley, Enniskillen grudge match, which I suspect will be for the minor places, but you never know. That's the joy of this side-by-side stuff. You never know. What characterises the top three clubs there? I think all have got slightly different strength. Headington, just generally an excellent programme, real cohesion, real crew, ethos, and an absolute credit to the powerhouse that Ryan Domain has built there. Looking at them today, they were a little bit more direct on the pickup than Shiplake. Shiplake under Dan Safdari, a club which has become synonymous with excellent blade work, but they were rowing much longer on the front end, I would say. Maybe a couple of degrees, but they were rowing notably longer than Shiplake and being more back-end loaded. Tomorrow, the wind conditions going to be quite light, so front end versus back-end loaded, it could be neither here nor there. I mean, it's splitting hairs anyway, right? But I think those are the two things that that really separate those two programs. And the Teddy side of things is, they are just absolute guts and glory. The physicality with which they were attacking the AB semi today really stood out. So it will be very interesting to see as we follow this race tomorrow, which is a smattering of World Championship medalists and Coupe de la Jeunesse veterans as well. Who comes out on top? Get Lakeside. The other championship event we need to mention is Championship Boys 8s. It's fast, guys. 99.16% St Paul's, with Radley only 0.5 seconds back on them. And then we've got a bit of a blob with Shiplake, Westminster, Hampton, Bedford and Teddy's, all within 1.6 seconds of each other after the time trial. Bedford and Teddy's bang dead heat based on the time trial scores. So we have not only a fast event here, and as we know, thankfully we are blessed in this country with very, very competitive junior boys and girls sweep events, but we are blessed with a very, very close field as well. I can see that one running overlap all the way down the course in the AB semis and the AB finals tomorrow as well. What stands out for me is, Radley for a number of years were a programme which produced good boats, good crews, but never really had the thrust. And since the arrival of Patrick Duggan from KCS, he moved there last year. I think that one of the things that's really stepped on is seeing how confident in physicality a Radley crew is, and how neat their blade work and body movement is. And I think that's a thing that I would really say stands out from a Radley crew of the last 24 months than say from previous years. I believe Mr. Duggan has made great use of the rowing tank, which they have at Radley, and clearly that's paying off in some of the movement that we're seeing in them. So well done to them. And then when we look at St Paul's, well, that's just a standout programme in terms of consistency, despite losing the stalwarts of that programme in people like Pat's Head and Alp Cardogan last year. That programme just comes back this year with another stonking group of athletes, and to do that GMT today really is quite an achievement. So it'll be great to see going into tomorrow what they're able to go and achieve as well. Bobby Thatcher clearly just churning out superb crews time after time. They are so efficient in how they move the boat, but then how they let the boat run as well. So much like I was saying about Radley in terms of how they move their bodies and their mass around the boat, Paul's do much the same thing incredibly well. not only are they physical in moving the boat, they are then sympathetic with how they let the boat move underneath them. So if you are trying to get super fast, think about pushing blooming hard, and then think about being really efficient in how you move forward. Who could feature from the reps? Right, so we've had the reps now, and we know who's going to be in the remainder of the AB semis. And looking at the pace, I think it's going to be hard, another hard one, for people to break into the A final grouping from that mythical, much sought after top 8. One of the reasons is that it's warm, right? And going out and doing another hard fought 2K in a day is going to take it out of people's legs. It's not to say that they're going to not able, if the likes of Eton and Shrewsbury and others don't go away and eat lots of pasta and drink lots of water tonight, that they won't be able to come back tomorrow and stick it to people. But the deltas between the pacing between the top 8 from the time trial and what we saw in the rep makes me think it's going to be a bit too much to make up. Not say it can't be done, and we like a good underdog story. So if you're from Eton or Shrewsbury or Dulwich, prove me wrong, get in there. I'd love to see it. And it would be lovely to just generally see Eton back up in the upper echelons. They are something of a napping giant of the sport, so it would be good to see that tomorrow. We're now going to finish off with one of the lesser talked about championship events, but I like it because it's one of the events I used to row in when I was a junior, and I like the stories that we see in this. It's the Championship Boys Coxed Fours. Yes, it's not an Olympic event, so guess what? The GMT might be slightly harder to come by, but who cares? 99.2% Windsor Boys School, not just a sculling programme. Well, hey, look at that. And they're also a club which often puts good crews into the Princess Elizabeth at Henley as well. So well done to those involved in that crew. So pacey. It was also the largest winning margin between first and second from the time trials of the day. And that margin was over Wallingford. So the other thing I wanted to mention was that, look, it's not just the Radleys, the Etons, the Bedfords, the Westminsters and the mega big posh schools out there who can stick a good sweet boat out. You've got two, Windsor Boys School, State School, Wallingford Rowing Club, a local club, sticking good crews out and achieving fast times in sweep events here at Nat Schools. So I wanted to close on that note. Who will be the People's Champion? Up the Proletariat, Windsor Boys School and Wallingford. Right, I think that draws things to a close here for day 2 of National Schools Regatta. Day 1 saw a lot of the Junior 14 and Junior 15 events yesterday run and champions be crowned. Day 2 was all about the time trials for the championship events, some repechages, and as we're seeing on the course now, the Junior 16 events coming down the track. Day 3, we'll see the championship events with AB semis and finals tomorrow. And on day 4, if I'm entirely honest, I can't remember because there's just so many good events. It's easy to get lost on things. Tomorrow, stuff to come and watch. Well, all of the events I've just spoken to you about. But I would also pick out championship boys doubles tomorrow. There are some individuals and crews in that event out to prove a point, and some real good individual athletes as well. So it's often an event that's overlooked. Don't overlook it tomorrow. Come and have a watch. Let me know how you've found this video today. Differences from last time is I've tried to mention more clubs in particular. And I'm also going to timestamp things so you can move to particular events. If you see me walking around with a camera, come and talk to me. If you see me walking around without a camera, come and talk to me anyway and tell me what's going on with your club. Tell me if there's a particular crew you think I should be following, or a particular theme. I hope I've not got too much wrong, and I really hope that if you've raced today, you've enjoyed yourself and you're proud of your performance, regardless of whether you've come first, last, or anywhere in between. Well done for turning up, well done for training through the winter, well done for having the courage to put a number on your bow ball and get down the 2,000 metre track. That's enough from me. You can just about see a race going off at the start, and I'm going to go home and drink some cold water.